Hello everybody, how wonderful to see you again. It sure has been a while. In this video, I would like to take you along on the surprisingly eventful process of making a suit from an original 1941 sewing pattern. This was my first time ever using a real vintage sewing pattern. I only ever used the reproduction ones before, and I plan to make this to wear to my birthday dinner at the end of June. For some reason, I encountered so many setbacks during this time that sometimes it really felt as if the suit just did not want to be made. For example, one of the setbacks, and the reason I haven't shared any videos with you lately, was that my phone completely died and I lost all my files, including my almost finished autumn fashion lookbook, which I worked really hard on, and the beginning of this video. So that was truly no fun at all. But I'm pleased to be returning to making videos, and I'm so excited to share with you the making of my dream 1941 suit. So let's get started. Oh, I don't have to get started. I'm from the future, and as you can see, I've already made the suit, but go ahead, enjoy the video. Here is the pattern. It's McCall's 4795, published in 1941. It certainly shows every one of its 84 years, but what a treasure regardless. I haven't yet looked at the inside of the pattern, so we are seeing it for the first time together. All the sewing information and instructions are on just one piece of paper. Quite a change from the pages upon pages of step-by-step instructions on reproduction patterns. It's fascinating. The pattern has already been cut out, in my size luckily. But wait a minute, something isn't adding up. Both skirt pieces, as well as the back bodice piece and the back neck facing, are all missing. So, that's an unwelcome surprise. I'm not really sure how to feel about that. I feel disappointed, betrayed a little. I don't really know what to do about that. I have less than 2 weeks until my birthday, so I'm going to need to find a solution and fast. I'm thinking that maybe I can improvise somehow and use existing pattern pieces that I have and use those to substitute for the missing ones. I don't know. Of course, it's disappointing, but we soldier on. Somehow. And to top everything off, my phone, on which I film and edit all of my videos, seems to have died and won't turn on, so I'm filming this right now on my ancient iPhone. It's not ideal, because not only do I have a lot of very important photos and videos and scripts and files on that phone, I also have parts of this video that I'm filming right now on it. So everything is going just fine and dandy, isn't it? There was supposed to be a fabric shopping montage here, but since I've lost that footage, this is the fabric for the suit. I chose a nice sturdy black calico. First, I went about cutting out the fabric for the 1941 suit pattern pieces I did have. Fun fact, I never usually cut out my actual sewing patterns. Instead, I just trace my size onto thick paper and cut that out. You never know if you may need a different size or decide to part with the pattern. Although I must say that the thick paper is a lot more difficult to store. Anyway, here's me cutting out some fabric. If you're anything like me and like the sound of fabric being cut, enjoy. When all available pattern pieces were cut out, it was time to sort through my other patterns to try to find substitute pieces. I knew the skirt was 4 sections, 2 front and 2 back, and the bodice back part was cut on fold and featured darts at the top and tucks at the bottom. The closest match for that was the back lining piece of a bolero pattern. For the skirt, I used Simplicity 8508. I am starting to think that God might not want me to make this outfit. I have been incredibly busy recently with the whole phone fiasco and other things, so I haven't started sewing yet, and it's less than a week until my birthday dinner. So yesterday I thought to myself, okay, let's do it. You still have a couple of days, but let's do it. And that morning I stepped on a rusty nail. I have been told to keep the foot elevated, which is pretty much the opposite of sewing. So now I have even less time than I thought. I'm going to rest it today, and tomorrow I'm going to start full on sewing for my life. And if that doesn't work out, okay, I got the sign. Finally, time to start sewing. I started with the skirt. It was mostly a very straightforward process. The calico was lovely to sew with, and I have made a couple of similar skirts in the past, so nothing was really a challenge. Since by this point I was rather short on time, I decided to leave the seams unfinished for now and come back to them later. Icy was so kind to lend me some company while I sewed, although at times she was more of a distraction than anything. Hello, Icy. Sweetheart. On that topic, that black calico sure loves to collect dog hair. It's absolutely everywhere. The instructions for attaching the skirt's waistband were different to my usual process. I've always attached it from the inside so there were no visible stitches, but this pattern asks you to top stitch, which meant that I had to be very neat and careful with my stitching because it would be seen. It was a little daunting, but I think it turned out looking quite nice, if I do say so myself. For the side closure, one has the choice of snaps or a zipper. I chose both, snaps for the top and a zipper underneath. With that, the skirt was done for the moment. I left it to hang for a few days before sewing the hem. Around this time, the light in my sewing room stopped working because, of course, I needed yet another setback for this project, but I brought in a lamp and just got on with it. Next up, the jacket, or blouse as the pattern calls it. This garment was far more complicated with quite a few more steps and instructions and a larger number of pieces to put together. The front bodice piece required lots of gathers and some more top stitching, which was becoming easier every time I did it. You may remember that the back bodice piece was missing from this pattern, so I replaced it with a piece from a bolero. Luckily, this was an almost perfect substitute, and I didn't need to make any major alterations. What tremendous luck and such a relief! While the top bodice sections were rather fiddly, putting together the peplum was quite simple and fun. After connecting all 3 pieces, I already sewed the hem before attaching the peplum to the jacket, since it was easier with less fabric. Then came the sleeves. Now, usually the reproduction patterns ask you to gather the top of each sleeve, but interestingly, this one has darts instead, which truthfully I found easier than gathering. Still, to make up for it, these sleeves had so many small tucks and darts that pinning and sewing them together made my head spin. Excuse the horrible lighting and the awful hair and the slight indecency, but I've pinned it together so far, and here's what it looks like. It's almost midnight, so And I'm wearing the skirt too, but I don't think you can tell. There's supposed to be a belt over here, but I haven't made it yet because I suspect a piece is missing from that as well. I love it. On the morning of my birthday dinner, where I planned to wear the suit, I got about trying to figure out the belt. As it turned out, I was indeed missing several pieces and only had 3 out of 5 to work with. As I racked my brains for a solution, I went ahead and sewed the hem of the skirt. I decided to use the machine instead of stitching by hand because I felt that the black calico and the thread blended together nicely, and the stitches were barely noticeable. Not to mention, I was a little short on time. Back to the belt. I put together all 3 pieces and sewed them to the peplum. Would you look at that wonderfully neat top stitching? Then I sewed the belt and top bodice pieces together in the same fashion, which is all I had time for before I had to get going. Tonight is my birthday celebration dinner, and here is the, at least outwardly, finished suit. It looks so wonderful, at least from far away. If you look close up, you can see that there's a safety pin here, in there, and there. But that's something I'll deal with later. However, I think it looks so good. It's my dream outfit. Alright, I'm half an hour late. Hello again, everybody. It's now been over 2 weeks since my birthday celebration dinner, and I think it's high time to finish off those last little touches that I didn't have time for earlier. The suit was absolutely wearable for my birthday, but it was held together by safety pins, so let's complete the project today. I believe I must address what the heck is going on with my hair. I tried to put in blonde highlights the other day, but this happened instead, so I hope you can forgive me and look past that, and let's go finish that suit. I'm ashamed to admit that my suit had been hanging on a chair untouched for 2 entire weeks. It was awfully wrinkled and covered with dog hair, which wasn't exactly motivating me to finish sewing it. First, I made a list of all the things I had left to do, so it wasn't overwhelming. Task number 1, dog hair removal. Somehow it's working. I didn't think it would. I think it's okay to have a little bit of dog hair, right? I don't have to be too thorough. I mean, I like it when people know I have a dog. There really is a lot.
Stop being so hairy.
Then it was on to ironing. As much as I enjoyed sewing with the calico, I must say that this fabric is truly a wrinkle magnet. The next thing to do was finishing a bunch of raw seams. Despite this being a rather tedious and boring activity, I like doing it. But I don't suppose it's much fun for you to watch, so let's fast forward. The 1941 sewing pattern shows how you can make your own shoulder pads, but since I already had some, I used those instead. I feared that because they're bright white, they would show through the fabric, so I covered them in black rayon. My reupholstering seemed to do the trick. Now it's time for me to figure out the closure of the jacket. I sewed everything really nicely. However, the jacket is a wrap style, and somewhere I missed something, and now I have both halves being front pieces. In addition to just being a general dunderhead, I have never made a wrap style jacket before, which, along with missing those other pattern pieces, did not help my confusion. So I left the instructions and made something up on my own. I put a hook and eye closure on the inside of the jacket, and the part that wrapped around the front was fastened with a button. Once I added the shoulder pads, the suit was done, and I thought it looked wonderful. I also added snaps to close the neckline, but I put them a bit too low and the top of my slip was showing. Oh dear! I promise I'll fix it later. And now, one last thing. I am so pleased with this outfit. It's the elegant black suit of my dreams. I just adore the way it looks. Its only downsides are that the fabric wrinkles quite easily and it seems to have an affinity for collecting dog hair. But I can deal with that. I truly had a great deal of fun making this ensemble and taking you along with me, and I know I'll be wearing this suit an awful lot in the future. And that's it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.